Welcome to Superlative. I am your podcast host, Ariel Adams. In each episode, you will meet someone who has inspired or takes inspiration from today's wristwatch industry. Every week, let's dive deep into the world of crafting exotic timepieces, from the people who dream them up to the people who dream of them. It's time to get started and meet today's guest. Hey everyone, Ariel Adams here with the Superlative podcast. My guest today is Martine Depresle. Martine, welcome.
Yeah, thank you very much, Ariel, for having me. Thank you for the invitation.
You know, before we got started, you were saying, that you're used to being more behind the scenes, and it's true. There's been a lot of times where I've seen you be behind the scenes at brands in various roles, and one of the things that really struck me about your career, we'll of course talk about what you're doing now, is that you have really done different types of things. You haven't just had the same job at a bunch of companies, but you've worked at very different companies doing very different things. Was that by design? Was that something that you were trying to do?
Yeah, it's absolutely. It's the way I consider my professional experience. Always learning and working in different fields. It's for me, it's really a way to improve my skills. Because when you are only on one track, for me, you can't really consider the different aspects on a project. The world is various, and especially now because with the internet, everything is connected. So for me, it's really important to have a holistic view, a global view on different industries, different kind of companies.
Thank you. Now, your background, if you sort of had to put everything together, is various forms of marketing and communication at luxury watch brands. And Vacheron Constantin, I think, is where maybe you and I, or maybe it was at somewhere else where you and I first interacted. Then, of course, at Singer Reimagined. Mm-hmm. Then you did a few things. And then over the last several years, you started something called the Watch Library. You are currently the CEO of the Watch Library. But talk a little bit, was that a natural progression for you? I just want to hear a little bit about what you feel you were trying to accomplish. What was interesting to you about watch brand marketing?
Yeah, perhaps a little bit about me to understand the consistency.
Yeah.
I came from a family of craftsmen and artists. So I really brought this knowledge and sensitivity for savoir-faire and creativity in my career. And I was a recruit at Vacheron Constantin. And that time I was working on a big exhibition in Le Louvre about savoir-faire and craftsmanship and métier d'art.
In Paris?
In Paris, yes.
Right.
So yeah, I'm French. I guess you can hear with my accent. So I started in Vacheron Constantin, better than me, really heritage brand. And for me, it was just amazing to work on VC collection, on different product launches, on the reveal of the overseas too. And I really learned. It's the way I came to watchmaking. And then I start a new adventure, Singer Reimagine, as you mentioned. And for me, it was really, my entrepreneurial spirit. I have a strong appealing to really build new projects, participate to new adventure. And the watch library is also, in this direction. So I started Singer Reimagine. I was contacted by Marco Borracino. He was working with Rob Dickinson on the launch of the brand and the company for the year after. And it was just amazing. I think we met also at this period in California.
Yeah. You were out here in LA, and we went to the Singer garage.
Exact. It was amazing collaboration. And for me, it was a way to be really close to how you build a brand, launch a new project, create really something new. So I really express my entrepreneurial spirit thanks to this experience.
What was the same and what was different between a small startup company like Singer Reimagined and a relatively established corporate-owned company like Vacheron Constantin?
The same was about the watch. It was really focused on the movement, mechanical movement, and working with excellence with the Agenor family. It was the time that Jean-Marc Liderech was still there, starting to pass the company to his son. So I was really focused on the movement, on the complication with this central chronograph.
All about making the machine work right.
Exactly. So yeah, it was really like high-end mechanical movement. So, and the difference was really about, let's say, these California spirits. It was more cheer, working together. It was cool, less. It's kind of, a different way, different atmosphere.
Richemont, not chill, not cool.
No, but it was, California is completely different compared to Geneva. It's not a question only of company.
Oh, I'm reminded of that every time I go to Geneva.
Yeah. You know what I mean?
They like to tell me, they're like, Ariel, just so you know, this is not California. And I'm like, I get it.
Relax. So yeah, that was really the main difference. Yeah.
So what is the Watch Library? The name is wonderful because it sounds inviting and, of course, exciting, but it's also, of course, a little bit ambiguous. That could be a lot of different things.
Yeah.
What is the Watch Library?
The Watch Library is first a foundation, a charitable foundation, public utility foundation.
Okay. So is that like a nonprofit, you mean?
Absolutely. Yeah.
Okay.
It was really think like that at the very beginning of the project in order to make the watchmaking heritage accessible to everyone. So yeah, it's an institution. And it's also now, since the 1st of September, a platform, a digital platform in open data where you can find not everything for the moment, but the ambition is really to build a big data. You can find a lot of archives about watches, archive from Switzerland, everywhere in Europe, US. So it's an amazing repository of content, archives about watchmaking.
Now, I'm going to ask you to boil that down to be a little bit more specific because, that description in a lot of ways is the same as a blog to watch, but I know that what you're trying to do with the Watch Library isn't a watch blog. So help explain it even further. Where would this content come from and what would people want to use it for?
Yeah, I have to start with the beginning of the story.
Please.
Yeah, so it was in 2020. I received a call from Pierre Maillard. Of course, Pierre Maillard from Eurostar. And Pierre knew me from my previous background at Vacheron Constantin. So he contacted me right before the containment because him and his nephew, Serge Maillard, were looking for someone to turn their first experience of digitizing their archive at Eurostar to a bigger, major project for the entire watchmaking industry. So they start to digitize their archive. And
so let me give a little context here. So Eurostar is a Swiss magazine about the watch industry. It's really one of the only ones, and it's been around for a while. And it's a family-run business right now. And they wanted to digitize their archives of publications. And what you're saying, Martine, is they apparently thought that they figured out a good system of digitization. They say, hey, why not? Let's digitize more.
Yeah, they start to digitize and they really receive very good feedback from that, a big interest of people. Of course, it's also linked to the development of the vintage watches interests. So and they say, yeah, it's super to have this online. At Europasa you can access through the club, but it would be more interesting to have like more archive that they will be able to present. So they were looking for someone to really, imagine the project with them, build the project, run the project. So we start to discuss. I wrote down notes, and yeah, I have the privilege to be chosen to collaborate with these amazing people because, as you said, I guess it's the third or the fourth generation of journalists specialized
Yeah.
in watches. It's a independent family-owned company, and what they do is just amazing. And for me, even I'm in the watch industry since 2015, it's quite new. So yeah, I learned a lot with them.
What's the support they get like? I'm curious because, the watch industry likes communication, not usually a huge traditional fan of independent media, though they've had to be, sort of recent years. But being Swiss and being right there, I think gives the Maillard family a special advantage. What exactly is their mission? What are they trying to achieve? And would you agree that their special position being there in Switzerland and having done this a few generations gives them a special advantage?
Yeah, of course, they are. I say at the same time they are observator, witness of the how the industry change and develop.
Right.
But they are really also part of this change because they are real journalists. I'm sorry, but you have to, when you read the article made by Pierre Maillard or Serge Maillard or the other journalists working with them. It's just amazing. It's like you really deep dive into a subject. They represent also, all the industry. They are not, I don't know if it's the right word in English, but partisan for one brand or another. They really,
They've maintained independence and they're neutral.
yeah,
They're not.
yeah,
They don't have an agenda, and they've earned that because of those relationships and somehow convincing of, hey guys, you want us to stay independent or else we can't tell true stories. And again, pretty much every other, we'll call it foreign media, meaning out of Switzerland, has not been able to have a relationship like that with the industry. So I'm just trying to point out that this is a special group of people, and
yeah.
if they're doing something, it implicitly seems to have the support of the industry. And look, it's an easy sell, I think, because we know that the history of the industry is part of the value of today's watches, right?
Exactly, and for the project, it was essential to build the project on their own. I mean, reputation too, and relationship they have with brand, as you said. So yeah, we were in March 2020, and the world closed suddenly. And with Serge Maya, we start an incredible world tour that leads us to Italy, Germany, Japan, China, and of course Switzerland. And we start by identifying hundreds of institutions and organizations, holders of archive. Because today, still today, even we change a lot with the launch of the platform. Content and archive about watchmaking are not really accessible, and especially online. You can find some element on Google, but with a lot of mistake in it,
Yeah.
and it's not really the first hand document.
Well, let me ask you a question. My guess is that the brands give your organization access to their facilities and archives, and you go in and you digitize. I guess the question is that correct? And are the brands easy to work with? Are they open? Do they allow you to view their archives?
We didn't ask the brand to participate. I mean, by sharing their archive. as we discussed, I had my first experience in Vacheron Constantin, and I know that archive and history and all these elements are really strategic and part of the brand DNA. And like the others, we don't really want to share.
Okay, I see.
Because we are an open data platform.
So what data is it? If it's not archive data from brands, where's the data coming from other than Europostar?
They came from museum, like Musée International d'Horlogerie in La Chaux-de-Fonds.
Okay, so
Musée
not brands
d'Art.
themselves, but other institutions that
Yeah,
themselves have these documents.
yeah, absolutely. Institution like
I'm just
museum.
curious where the data comes from. I think that's a very important
Sure.
question.
Yeah, and from also Horological Society. One of our big partner is the Horological Society of New York.
Okay.
And Nick Manoussos is also part of the board committee of the foundation, like Régis Huguenin from the Musée International. There is a lot of content outside of the brand, in different, even in private, in collectors' private libraries, for instance.
Yeah. And what is the process of getting that to you? Like, how does it become digitized? Like, if somebody wants to say, hey, Watch Library, I have some stuff that should be part of your database. What's the process like?
We organize and we create a scientific committee with really experts, historian and expert in watchmaking heritage. We have Pierre-Yves Donzé. I guess you know Pierre-Yves Donzé is an historian. He's based in Japan. He's in Boston for the moment. Laurence Bodenman from she works in the watch brand in heritage. So we have different experts, and that's really their job to select the archive we have to digitize in priority.
Now, I haven't looked at a live version of the Watch Library. I'm not sure what the status is right now, but what is the public facing side like? Who has access to it? Is it paid? Is it free? And what tools are at the disposal? Because, data sometimes is only as good as the filters and indexes and ways you navigate it. Talk a little bit about, what is it like to use the Watch Library?
Yeah, the library it's really for everyone in the industry, journalists, industry experts, people from marketing, really everyone can use the Watch Library. Everyone looking for content and information about the heritage, of course, but also collectors. We have a lot of collectors, and especially the new generation of collectors visiting the platform, looking for content. And the way to access is really in open data. It's free. It's free, and it's really part of the mission of the foundation. The mission of the foundation is to preserve the watchmaking heritage and to really valorize this heritage, to make it accessible.
How do you curate what it looks like? I mean, how is it indexed? I mean, I've seen some of this data.
Yeah.
And, I guess you can categorize it by era, you can categorize it by brand, but there doesn't seem to be much of a real academic approach yet, right? Like, with a normal library, we have the sections, we have the genres. Like, who's making all that for something like the Watch Library?
Yeah, it's true that even we work with a really expert to define the search experience on the platform. I mean the filter, as you said.
Yeah.
What kind of filter are really important? So you have two level of filters: first and secondary filter. So you can select, as you said, by sources, by media, by country where the archive was created, for instance, by date, of course. But the idea was not to create like something really straight. It's really a platform with a special user experience in terms of search. It's easy to access. It's visual. We receive a lot of feedback about the design by itself. It's not boring. So you have to try, and
I'm looking
especially
forward to it. It sounds cool.
okay, and especially one of the functionality really important in the platform is the timeline. So it's really a way to navigate within the archive, within the topic you select only by visualization through the years or through the period you select. So it's more intuitive. And yeah, I received from one of our donors, who is really an expert in heritage. He say, "Yeah, that's the first time I use this kind of functionality, and it's great. It's allowed me to have a new experience in terms of search, and it's really what we want to do. So the platform is for expert, but not only, it's also for collectors, and little by little, linked in relation with the content we will add in the platform, it will be more for the general public, for watch leather without being an expert in terms of heritage, just to find out information about this vintage watch or a specific brand, or I hope I answered your question.
Yeah, no, I mean, look, I've been thinking about this for a long time. I mean, years ago, within the first year or two of me ever writing about watches, back in, around 2007 is when I started. 2008, I was already thinking about this. There's no one list of all the watch brands. Just the sheer idea of having a list of all the watch brands, and forget the fact that new ones are being made, it seems almost every couple of days. But
Yeah.
there's never been just a full list, because nobody actually even knows all the brands. So any of these academic resources, no matter how much they tried, would only have to be a slice of the larger history. So much of the real watch history, at least over the last 100 years, especially over the last several hundred years, is lost forever. We have little bits and pieces. We have lots of guesses. We have a lot of mysteries. But this is never going to be what we can consider a complete history that we can collect, even with digitization.
Yeah, it's true. And little by little, we discover every week's new archive, really archive unknown, even for experts, because with the platform we had created like a movement. People just call and or drop an email to say, "Hey, I found this. What do you think?" So we work with the scientific committee to evaluate. But you're right, there's no place. But now we have the watch library, but where you can find, all content and archive related to this industry. You have to visit every single museum or libraries to find content. And it was one of the things that Nicolas Biebuc from Tagueyer is one of our new donor. They joined this summer, and he said, yeah, he's like new, less than me in the watch industry, and he said that when I start, I really try to find a place where I can learn. A place where you have everything about heritage and history, and it's so difficult to find.
Yeah, we had Nicholas has been on the show, actually. And we talked a little bit about that. I think one of the interesting things for me, and maybe you can give me your opinion, is that still right now, and it's still a new industry, meaning the watch collecting industry. The watch industry is not new. The watch collecting industry is relatively new. And that means most of the well-studied people are self-taught, and they're collectors, they're media people such as myself, but there's no school teaching watch history. There isn't sort of an established legacy of an academic tradition. There aren't, experts who have written established, academic books that have been peer reviewed. Like, none of that really exists. And a lot of it, of course, hasn't necessarily been the economics for it. But do you agree or disagree about that sort of the status of a lot of this? And a lot of it relates to the money around watch collecting.
Yeah, it's true that for the moment the knowledge is dedicated to, students, less for collectors. But you have some initiative. I'm thinking about the FHH. They participate to educate. Horological Society in New York, they do an amazing job
Yeah.
to really spread the culture.
So there's some, but these are new. These are very new
Yeah,
institutions.
it's new. It's new, and yeah, it's with the watch library, it's the first time that we have a collective project. Because it's really a project for the industry, by the industry, our donor thinking about Audemars Piguet. They are with us since the beginning. The idea and really their motivation is really to share the knowledge to the industry, to the collectors. It's, they are really motivated by the collective aspect of the
Yeah.
project. But yeah, you're right. Still missing perhaps something. And yeah, it could be something for the watch library in the future. I don't know.
I want to say that I think it was absolutely the correct thing to make this a nonprofit charity
Mm.
in terms of the business structure. I think that's really a wise way in terms of structuring yourself to move forward and to sort of have the right mission and the right incentives. My question is, who should actually be paying for this? Should it be watch brands? Should it be consumers? Should it be the Swiss government? I don't know. I mean, in your opinion, who would stand to gain the most by funding what you are running right now?
There is different shareholder in the project. I mean, in terms of benefits, for of course for the institution. I mean, public institution. It's important because the project is also linked to the UNESCO recognition that was in
Right.
December 2020, the recognition of the watchmaking savoir-faire. So they have to continue, I mean, as an institution in this direction to really promote the savoir-faire, to preserve the heritage. So they clearly can beneficiate from by supporting the watch library. For the brand, it's obvious because a lot of the brand consider themselves as a heritage brand. And to be consistent, it's really important to behind the product and the commercial aspect of being an heritage brand, to have really a genuine commitment to engage themselves for, let's say, for good, to give back to the watchmaking community.
I'll tell you my concern, Martine, and maybe you can tell me what you think about this. Here's my concern. And you know this because I think, of course, you've had many roles in marketing at brands. Watch companies, if it were reliant on them to pay for these types of academic endeavors, they will treat this like a marketing expense. And as a marketing expense, it's always sort of like a pleasant extra. They never see it as a 100% necessary expense. It comes after a long line of other expenses, and they turn it off if they feel like they can't afford it. So my worry is that the watch academic field would be disrupted, especially economically, anytime there's a slight even whiff of an economic downturn and the budgets get slashed. And so I see a limitation in growth, a limitation in sustainability, a limitation in just being able to run in a stable way if the brands themselves are always reliant for the funding. You know what I mean?
I know perfectly what you mean, and I think that perhaps that's the reason why some brands say no, because they consider it as a marketing operation. But for the donors we have today are really donors engaged with a genuine engagement for heritage. Part of the donor are anonymous. So it's a real engagement to really preserve the archive and the heritage.
Right.
And the other, so we have three donors as like major brand. They want to stay anonymous because it's not part, as you said, because it's a risk, but it's not part of the brand or marketing strategy at all. And talking about the visible one, Audemars Piguet since the beginning, Richard Mille and Tiger, we work with the heritage department. We don't work with the marketing department. and this is also really close to their own engagement to preserve the watchmaking heritage. Considering Audemars Piguet, they do a lot to preserve the savoir-faire and the craftsmanship, individual craftsmanship, but also industrial savoir-faire. So it's kind of extension of their own strategy. But you're right, it's not like something related to the brand. I mean, only marketing aspect.
Hi, this is Ariel Adams, founder of A Blog to Watch, with a message about eBay. I visit eBay daily and have been relying on eBay to learn about and acquire watches for more than 20 years. Did you know that you can now buy watches directly from brands or their authorized dealers on eBay? Timepieces coveted by watch enthusiasts from brands like Zodiac, Laco, Depresle, and more are part of eBay's Certified by Brand program. Here's how it works. Luxury names are partnering with eBay to bring brand new and pre-owned watches and other luxury accessories directly to you. Certified by Brand includes a minimum 1-year factory warranty for watches and offers an unprecedented selection of new and used watches directly from the source, all with the peace of mind you can expect from eBay. Visit ebay.com/certified by brand for more information. Well, you know what I found interesting, and this is a great opportunity to talk about it, is this heritage department. A couple of years ago, or maybe several years ago, this was not really a thing at most brands. And if it was like, one employee, and they also had other things to do, like, run the copy machine. This was not really taken seriously. Now, all of a sudden, and I think Nicholas at Tag Heuer is a perfect example, there are not only heritage departments, but the people that run them are powerful. They have a lot of say and decision-making authority at brands. Nicholas is one of them. Breitling as well. It's very big. We know that at Omega it was they had a lot of power over there. But this is a role I see that also has a huge amount of decision-making power. I was doing a presentation with Longines recently. They did an event here in Los Angeles, and I did a talk with their their head of heritage and head of brand and heritage, they call it. It's always a different title. And this is sort of an interesting phenomenon. Would you agree that sort of relatively recently these heritage departments have popped up and that they are interestingly quite powerful?
Yeah, fully agree with you. It's hard, perhaps, I don't know, depending on the watch, on the brand. Sorry, it was 10 years ago or less, and it's of course related to the development of the vintage markets, the second-hand markets, because I read a few days ago that the second-hand market will be bigger than the new watches markets in 10 years, 15 years. Is it correct?
I would take that with a grain of salt.
Yeah, you have to check. I was like, wow.
As of the trajectory of the pandemic, if it went that way, which we know it won't. I think you're right. It's obviously a very big one. But when I hear things like, if I said to you, did you know that the sale of used cars will be larger than the sale of new cars? You'd be like, that doesn't even make sense.
Yeah. For cars, perhaps car is different because, with the electric market, it's...
if that was true...
It's renew the market.
If that was true, I would be afraid as to how few new watches are being sold, right? If there's more used watches being sold than new, I'd be like, why aren't we making new watches anymore, right? That would be the big problem.
Yeah, that's what I was like, okay, it's strange. But it's true that the heritage department, you can see it when you have the launch of the new a new piece. It's really often revealed of the old model. And usually you have the heritage manager or someone from the heritage department that's contribute to the presentation. And the heritage department has a real importance and impact within the watch industry in each brand. I mean, most of the brand. And you said that about Longines. Longines, they digitize all their archive few years ago.
Oh yeah.
yeah, it was an amazing project, and our partner is the supplier who did the project for them. So they are really involved in the way to preserve their own heritage, and but most of the brand, they are lost part of the or totally the heritage, and they try to recreate, to find, um, to find documents about
Yeah, like why did we do this? What did we make? What was
yeah,
our relationship with like this country, retailer, whoever? All kinds of stuff.
exactly, exactly. Mm.
So I'm thinking more a little bit about this heritage department, and I'm thinking strategically why it makes sense. And again, I'd like to hear your opinion here. Here's my theory. What we've seen over the last couple of years is that the success and stability of a brand is often directly related to the CEO. If it's like a good CEO, they have great times. If it's a bad CEO, like everything breaks down. And I think that brands were too reliant on essentially an administrator to maintain a creative direction. So my theory is that the heritage department is essentially there to keep the creative part of the company on some type of autopilot or going in the event that the leader of the company is ineffective or goes away.
Yeah, I think interesting. It's true that heritage department, it's really more
They're about
stable.
continuity, right? They're really about continuity.
Yeah, they're continuing the story. It's they are stable, and it's kind of point de repère for the brands. It's really the DNA of the brand, of the company, is in this department.
It's like if
Yeah,
all else fails, like if we lose our brain, we have like a backup. It's the heritage department. They'll at least remember how we made watches and we were successful. We can always go to them.
yeah. You're right. You're right. Mm-hmm.
Patek Philippe has their, I don't know what they call it, but their Patek Philippe, uh, you know, uh, memoir of what a great watch is, and apparently it's this loose assortment of documents. They've never let me see it, even though I've asked. But they actually had to create documentation that said this is what we think a Patek Philippe watch should encompass and standards of whatever. Because it's a very interesting idea. If like someone picked up the brand 100 years from now and they had to make what would satisfy people today as a Patek Philippe, that would be really, really hard to do without, I guess we use the word savoir faire, but it's a lot more complicated than that, right? It's truly the embodiment of the culture.
Yeah, it's not only about the savoir-faire, as you said. You're right. It's about the culture. It's about intangible culture of the manufacturer, of the brand, and it's really important. And it's also back to the watch library platform. It's something that you can discover by with your search, because it's not only about the information by itself, but it's also about the context. Because you have access to the magazine, to the books, you have access to the how was the world in that period? What are the other competitors? What are the trends? And you're right. This intangible part of the culture, it's key for manufacturer, for brands, and
What about exhibitions? I know you're the watch library, but you have all this knowledge, you have all these documents, and it would make sense for you or someone in your organization to curate exhibitions from time to time and maybe have them displayed at venues. Um, I love things like that. I like special museum exhibits. I would find it fascinating. What are your thoughts on that, or are those already part of the plans?
yeah, it's already part of the plan. You're
Okay.
right. Yeah. Because the priority for us is really to preserve the archive and to build this big data related to watchmaking heritage, and give the big data accessible as much as possible. And then after we come the curating part of the project, with a specific angle, because we really want to show how watchmaking is linked to other industry, of course, to, I don't know, fashion, science, architecture, based on the document and the specific curators involved. So definitely we want to create this as a second part of the project. It will be both online and offline. And it will be a collective exhibition to involving museum, perhaps collectors, of course, Horological
It's going to
Society
take a lot
and
of
brand.
experimentation, right?
Yeah, exact.
Wait,
So
what physical venues would this be at? Because I've actually thought about this a little bit because I want there to be more watch museums out there in the way that there are art museums out there. And there's a lot of, nuance and complexity, and the details have to be right. And I think there needs to be like maybe 5 failed institutions for every one that makes it, because it's going to be hard to get the chemistry right between funding and interest and alliances, right?
yeah, I think that's, I don't know. We not works, so deeply in the project by identifying the location, but the collective part could be the platform, and then we can perhaps build like a path that's allow visitors to go in different places in different countries, because people on watchmaking, they travel a lot, even collectors.
Yeah. No, it'd have to be
So
all over the world. I mean, you would have to centralize.
absolutely,
You would have to be
yeah,
like the communication point between the interest in Switzerland and these various institutions around the world, which the FHH kind of tried to be, but it just became too much for them because there's just too much to do. But, there's all these major areas around the world, several dozen at least, where there's a lot of watch buying happening. And you would have to have some type of relationship with as many of those regions as possible, right?
exactly. And we are based in Geneva, but we are international. We work a lot with US, with Japan. We start to work in China because we have an expert within the scientific committee. She worked many years in the Cité Interdite in Beijing, and it has to be international for sure. Since the beginning, and it's depending the topic of the exhibition. You can really go in new places, not only the the usual one.
You got to give me some examples. What are your dream watch library exhibits in the next 5 years? What would they look like?
Yeah, it would be something. If we consider watchmaking and architecture, for instance, you have many places in the world related to architecture. It could be private places or amazing museum. So it's it's really open. I will share later once we will be on this step.
Okay, we'll talk about that.
Yeah.
I'm personally interested in that. I mean, look, I've been doing this 16 years now. I don't know what I'll be doing 16 years from now or another 16 years after that. But if I was going to remain in my trajectory, I would rather do something on the more academic direction than the more commercial direction. Like, I don't want to be a salesperson like a lot of my colleagues turn into. That does not interest me. I'm not going to start a watch brand. Like, that's, I mean, I could do that, but it's just not where my heart is at. That's not what I want to be doing. I'd rather help create more interest in the category. I want to be like one of those advocates that from my corner of the world is saying, hey, be interested in watches. And I think these watches are cool and check this stuff out. Like, that for me seems to be a more logical, way for me to sort of end my career. But right now, those jobs don't exist. Like, there's no watch museums for me to go be the curator of and retire and get cool brands and exhibits happening there. Like, that would be really cool, but that infrastructure doesn't exist yet.
Yeah. So, well, you're welcome in the project, Ariel. You can be part of the advisory board of the project and really contribute to this aspect. Is the creation aspect.
If you think my voice would be valued, I would be very happy to accept your invitation. But you know that
of
I'm the
course.
loudmouth American.
No, we work a lot with US, and we need to cover all US. So for the moment, we are really focused on the east part of US in New York. But
I
yeah,
gotta say, and I say this to different guests on the show, and I'll repeat it to you because it makes me smile that the watch category as a hobby has such a bright future. Really surprises and delights me. Like the world is going in such a terrible direction so many ways, but it's like we know that in 20, 30 years, people are still going to be into fine watches, maybe even more so than they are right now. And I don't know how that happened, but it's kind of this one of the amazing ironies of our times, right?
yeah, you're right. You're right. So we have to keep this idea in mind for sure.
But it's I think we should talk more about that because I'm currently writing an article. It's not done yet. It's kind of a morbid topic, but the topic is what happens to people's watch collections after they die. Because the watch collecting hobby is still, we'll call it young enough that there haven't been like generations of people that died with 1,000 watches or 100 watches, or more. And we're going to start getting to that in the next 5, 10, 20 years where people who have had a lot of money and knowledge have amassed large collections. And when they pass away, there's going to be various things that can happen. And I don't think every one of these watch collections is destined to be sold off in a fire sale. Some of them might be donated to watch museums. Some of them might become museums unto themselves, like art collections became, actual museums and things like that. So I think that there's a lot of questions about how the collecting community industry will respond when these huge collections start to become available for a new owner. Because, let's be honest, most of the time the families are not going to want to keep these collections or even know what to do with them.
Yeah, so yeah, it's fit the auction house sales, but it's also that's collecting watches. It's often starts because your parents gave you a watch, or perhaps your father, or I can say mother, but
didn't happen with me. I had to figure it out for myself.
Yes. So yeah, it's you can transmit. It's not always dark. You can transmit your collection to your family. At the watch library, we receive some call about that, but more about the personal bibliothèque of collectors.
Yeah.
Because often when you are collectors, you also collect books, manuscripts, and so for us, it's so we have to evaluate the.
Do you want my 2 decades of warranty cards? I'm kidding.
Why not?
Or what the funny thing is, the watch boxes that were made so poorly they disintegrated, and you're like, wow, nobody thought that someone would want this box 20 years from now. But there's so many like things that have disintegrated, and certain watches entirely, that straps, cases, dials, like it's actually not the case that these things are designed to last forever, right?
Yeah, it's true, but not forever, but. It can length for a long time. Huh?
What are some things that so far through this journey you've personally learned about the history of the watch industry, which has really got you hooked? Like something you're curious about, something you're excited to learn more about. Maybe like anytime there's a new archival document on this topic, you want to see it. I'm just curious how this is igniting your own passions.
So I'm not historian, but I really love the idea that I can improve my knowledge about the secret travels of watchmakers.
Secret travels?
What
does that mean?
From watchmaker watchmaker from Switzerland. They start to visit the world and spread their expertise at the end of the 19th century.
Okay.
And it's amazing because by considering the watch community, you can see that the community is really worldwide, and different countries contribute to the savoir-faire of mechanical watchmaking. So yeah, that's super interesting. And I was told, but also by Sébastien Vivas from Audemars Piguet, so he's an expert. He was looking for different topic, especially about guillochage.
Yeah.
And he said that the guillochage, everyone agreed on the fact that the first watch with guillochage start in 1786, if I
very
remember
specific.
well. Yeah, very specific. And thanks to the watch library, he discovered in 10 minutes that no, the first one was like 20 years ago by another guy, I like this idea that you rediscover the watchmaking story. So as I'm curious, there's a lot of things to learn or rediscover, and especially by serendipity,
What types of individuals does your organization need? Like, are you hiring students and library science graduates? Like, when you get the funding, how do you grow so that you can do more of what you're trying to do? I'm curious.
The focus for us it's about digitization, but it's done with a external partner,
and they do the actual scanning and stuff like that.
Yeah,
okay.
And OCR and everything. The platform, we work also with an agency specialized in this kind of search engine. For me, the key point to really develop ourselves is about the CTO. I have an amazing CTO. Is the guy really data oriented?
Right.
So that's important. And yes, I would love to have more people do some curation, and also helps to identify archive everywhere in the world. It's still an important part for us.
I want to talk about AI, or what people like to refer to as AI.
Yeah.
You now have a growing database, and at some point it would make sense to train an AI algorithm on it, so that you can ask it questions like, what was the first year this happened, or what types of watch projects was this individual involved in? How far away are we from those types of applications being available to you? Is that something that's on your radar?
Yeah, absolutely. We already have some AI in the platform by it's about visual recognition.
Right.
So that's the point. The real question is about AI related to the ChatGPT technology. It's really a technology that helps you to understand the context and to have an answer. I mean, a rich answer. The question for us is what kind of AI we will implement in the platform. So for the moment, we test the platform. It's a beta test platform you have online. It's really advanced, but it's a beta test platform. We learn how people search, what kind of information they search. And we also have built a panel of early user, because this will help us to select the right part of the AI technology. Is it better for them to have an AI with help about question, or an AI that can visualize the answer?
You have to choose at this point.
There's a lot. Yeah, you have to choose, and I want to choose by knowing exactly what are the user needs on the platform.
Okay, that's interesting.
Not AI for AI.
Because I know that they're working on technologies to merge all that stuff together. And the idea is there's all these amazing databases out there, the Watch Libraries database, but around the world, just databases. But most of them are useless, because it would take the average person a lifetime or more, maybe many lifetimes, to go through the data and then to synthesize it all, and then to be like, tell me some interesting things about this entire database. That's not human work anymore. We're not able to do that. So we're now developing machines that you can basically just throw an entire database in and be like, okay, there's text in here, there's videos, there's images. Just absorb it all and make sense of it, and then have a nice natural language user interface where and human can interact with you and ask questions about this database, and you can answer it and you can be an expert on it. The AI becomes the mega teacher.
Yeah, and first, it's really important to use AI as a way to augment the data, not a way to select your answer for you. It's really something important in the platform. We didn't implement any algorithm. It's the user. They do their own search. They select their own filter to really have access to the content they want to see or to find. Otherwise, the temptation could be to really push information to user. And at the end, for a user that looking for something specific, it is not able to find it because your search engine and your system always present the same thing.
I mean, look, I think what we're touching on is this notion that this is an advancing world of interfaces with data. There's companies, Google, Apple, Garmin, that have these incredibly mind-numbingly huge amounts of data, and the problem is they're not always sure how to visualize it or what to do with it. And so, the large language model software systems and what we call AI and things like that are the perfect solution of how to handle the huge amounts of data. But we're just at the infancy. And now all we have is our science fiction minds to think about what can be done. But we know that ultimately these are supposed to be data calculators. And we love calculators because they simplify and make something easy that was hard and now give us new information. So it empowers us. Mm-hmm. But we're just now making the calculators. And then the next thing is, what questions do we ask the calculators?
Yeah, I see. And especially, I guess that as you're based in California, you're really close to this kind of technology.
I mean,
for sure.
Look, we're in media, right? And it's an interesting conversation. My team has a lot of, hot feelings about AI and things like that. I'm much more open-minded. I understand. I see it as a tool. And for me, any tool, if it replaces something that humans used to do, then a human probably didn't want to do it anyways, and it just empowers a human to do something that much more sophisticated.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, absolutely. So yeah, it's something we don't know yet how which aspect we will implement, but we will be part of the work and we do with our panel.
But that's going to be, I think, the future, Martine, is people are going to be able to go to it and say, something as vague as, what was Audemars Piguet good at in the 1960s? I mean, it's a very specific question that relies on a lot of context and things like that. But you could very easily have this with even today's technology. You'd have to train it correctly. But this is the type of questions that you could ask that right now you'd be like, well, I have to look through, 5,000 documents and then I'll be able to make that decision. We're talking about speeding up this research. And I guess, we don't know how this is going to be used necessarily, but this is what it means to have AI power when it comes to these huge databases.
Yeah, absolutely. For the moment, we have like 325,000 documents. So it's good, but the idea is really to reach the point to 3 million.
Yeah.
Because talking about AI and talking about deep learning, you need to really have like a lot of data. And for sure we will implement, I hope next year, based on what we learn from the user behavior and experience of the platform. How the AI, as you said, can speed the search, can help the search. Yeah, absolutely.
Interesting questions. In a few years from now, we'll have to speak again on this exact topic and see actually what you've been able to use AI tools for and maybe what you haven't. Last question, and this is really just related to sort of what some of your priorities are right now. What are you currently working on, in terms of the projects or the various areas right now at the Watch Library? And what has all your attention at the moment?
In terms of content, we are working on funding the next digitization projects. I'm thinking about the Revue Internationale d'Horlogerie. It's an archive, amazing archive. It's like the Horological journal. It's about 150,000 pages about watchmaking.
Cool.
And then as it's international, it's super interesting because it's about everything in different countries in the world. So I really hope that we'll be able to find this by the end of the year.
When was this made?
Second part of the 19th century until just beginning of the 20th
Okay, so
century.
are you looking for these archives, or do you have it and you're hoping to digitize it?
We have the archive in the Musée International d'Horlogerie. We are looking for the fund because it's an important project. Yeah.
Is it expensive these days to engage in the digitization? I know it's a manual process and a human being has to often physically scan page by page. It's, there aren't standard sizes or automated ways of doing it.
Yeah, it's expensive because it's not only about digitization, digitize each page. It's about the layer of recognition you had after.
So you can see the text. So it's not just a picture, but you can read the text.
Yeah, you can read the text. You can, it's a full text indexation, let's say. And then you have to index on the platform. So it takes some time also to be able after to really optimize the recognition of the document within the platform as part of the search of the user. So yeah, it's significant, let's say. And in terms of priority too, I'm working on different partnership in different countries with source holder. They already digitized their archive, and the idea is to really build partnership like that. They can share their archive within the platform. So already digitized archive. And yes, the second part of the platform and the second release is important for us. It will come next year. And as I said, for the moment, we are really observing, analyzing, discussing with early user to really understand how we can improve the platform and how we can push further the project in terms of technology. And as we just said, AI is part of this.
Very interesting, Martine. Thank you for talking about the Watch Library. Where can people learn more about the Watch Library on the internet right now?
Yeah, of course. It's watchlibraries.org. So it's open data, open access. So please enjoy, and you will see that on the web page there is a survey because we really want to hear feedback from users.
Thank you. This has been the Superlative Podcast with Martine Depresle. Martine, thank you so much.
Thank you, Ariel. Thank you very much.
We hope you enjoyed this episode of the Superlative Podcast. This show relies on support from you, the audience. Please subscribe, review, and share Superlative with your friends. To get the latest watch news and enthusiast commentary, also listen to the Blog to Watch Weekly podcast. For show ideas, comments, or business, please contact us at podcasts@ablogtowatch.com.